Senator Ball, thanks very much for your time. It's good to see you.
Good to see you, although I can't see you, but I'm sure it would be.
Okay, well, you know, I can see you, and you're looking good. So here's the question. What happened in there?
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. 4 hours.
You know, you've got to ask the majority leader about that. But I will say this. I mean, the governor has basically sent down a bill draft, an actual bill, at the very end of session, and there are real issues in the text of that bill. I've been talking about religious carve-outs now for a while, and I think from what I've seen reported that this chorus is maybe starting to grow a little bit, but the realities are real. I mean, we've seen in other places where Catholic adoption agencies have shut down, where religious organizations have been opened themselves up to litigation, not themselves, but by the passage of the legislation.
Right.
And if the governor is going to get this right, and he's going to do this, and let's just be serious. I mean, you have those on the extreme right who don't even support civil unions, and then those on the extreme left who won't accept the possibility of civil unions. So we're going to the next level, which is saying, okay, well, we're going to do, there's a push for marriage equality. If you're going to do that, in my opinion, there should be real religious protections in that bill.
Okay, let's talk about that then. The religious protections part here seems to me to be a little bit of a fine line, because isn't there a requirement under federal law and state law that you can't discriminate based on sexual preference, sex, color of your skin, etc.? And I understand religious freedoms, and that's also protected in the Constitution. So,
right.
So how do you thread that needle?
There's no doubt that it's a very fine line that's going to have to be addressed. And, you know, maybe this should have taken place, maybe the governor should have, and I'm not, you know, he did it the way he felt he needed to do it. But because it is such a fine line, this is a serious conversation that has to be had. I mean, there are 3 basic categories. One is religious institutions, Catholic Church, other religious institutions. You want to see them protected within the language of this bill.
Okay,
so,
wait, stop right there. Let's stop and parse these out one by one. That's in there, actually. Yep. There's nothing in that bill that requires, as far as I can tell from my reading of it, that any religious institution be forced in any way, shape, or form to marry any people that it does not believe should be married, correct?
Right, so on point 1, for the most part, there seems to be a good enough carve out for religious protections for religious institutions, and that in and of itself is nothing new.
Okay.
Part 2 would be religious organizations themselves.
Right.
There's still large loopholes, and the bill is not comprehensive enough in protecting religious organizations.
Well, what do you need to see
I'll give you one example.
Yeah, what do you need to see to feel comfortable? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it needs to say something to get you to yes, or even to consider yes. What does it need to say?
I hate to read, but I'm going to give you 4 points that are not included in this bill. The exemption given for church halls and facilities of benevolent orders, it's limited. It does not protect religious or benevolent orders from challenges to their tax-exempt status. It also doesn't protect against local human rights or public accommodation laws. 2, and this is actually the 3rd point, which we'll parse out later, but the governor's bill does not protect individuals with religious objections. That's a 3rd issue. It's a much tougher issue, and in threading that needle, it's the toughest thing to get done, as you suggested.
Well, what does that mean? Individuals like religious leaders, or individuals like people who are managers of Knights of Columbus halls, for example? The person you feel like needs protection from lawsuits?
Well, 3 major categories, like we spoke about. Religious institutions. In religious organizations is part number 2. Part number 3 would be individuals with religious objections. I'll give you an example. A town clerk or justice of the peace who has a religious objection to, or a local mayor, to performing a same-sex marriage. Under the current legislation, they would be opening up themselves or the town to lawsuits. So we've got to step ourselves through that language. And maybe on some of these, because of competing needs, we're not going to be able to get 100%. But I think it's important to have the most basic religious protections and carve-outs, and to do the absolute best we can, especially given the fact that we're not even talking about civil unions here. We're talking about full-out marriage equality. So the left has already raised the bar, and to ask for these simple religious protections, I think, is just basic common sense the vast majority people can agree to.
Okay, what I
the other
understand,
thing, Liz, I know it's yep.
just let me ask you this. What I understand from talking to a couple of folks who were in that marathon meeting that you guys had. First of all, we should remind people there were no staffers in there. This was a full, honest airing of something that you have not done yet this year, of a very controversial issue with people who are colleagues having a really honest, heart-to-heart discussion. Right? It was a revealing conversation, is my understanding.
I'll tell you, and I don't speak for the conference in any way, but I can say as a new member, it was an absolutely amazing conference between members who have an enormous amount of mutual respect for each other, members who disagree sometimes on the fundamentals of this issue, but the conversation was elevated, it was endearing, it was engaging, and this Senate majority is a majority for a reason. And if people could see it, all they have to do is watch on the floor how some of these members act, how our members act. It was very impressive.
Well, and my understanding also about the conversation was, even though there are political considerations here with threats, for example, by the Conservative Party, and you and I have discussed this before, you actually won the Conservative line without the leadership behind you. You even won without the Republican leadership behind you, so you are an independent guy. But the Conservative Party has threatened here a political implication and retaliation. That wasn't the nature of this discussion. My understanding is it really was about ideology and not about timing of the bill, and maybe we should trade it for tax cap and political implications, and I need to save my seat.
You know, I think that this issue, when you're a legislator and you represent 300,000 people or more, and we're hearing from thousands of our constituents every single day. You know, I have folks on my right, people who I call my base, who stood by me when nobody else did, who feel very strongly on this issue, who actually view that marriage equality is an affront to their religion. They have very strongly held heartfelt beliefs. And then on the left, you got to understand, I'm a young leader. In many instances, this issue it's a generational issue. I was out front against Don't Ask, Don't Tell. I have a very strong, even though I voted against gay marriage in the Assembly, very strong gay rights voting record. And they view it as a civil rights issue. Well, as a legislator, you have to stand somewhere in the middle, unless you're going to try to pander to one side or the other, and just try to listen to both sides with respect and dignity. And I think that our conference is doing that on an individual level, and there are real issues in this bill. I'm telling you, the governor sent this down. I think in some instances he may have done it to jam us at the very end. And by the way, we still have a property tax cap that we have to get done.
Yep.
We have agreements on ethics. It would be nice to have a jobs bill to move forward. Now he is trying to jam us with this the marriage equality bill. And at the end of the day, we have real issues. I'm not going to speak for us, but I can say me, real issues with the religious protections that need to be placed. Nobody wants to see Catholic adoption agencies have to shut down their services in the state of New York.
Well, hold on. How would that work, though, Senator? Because the Catholic adoption agencies would say no to a same-sex married couple who applied to adopt a child. Is that your concern?
Let me say this. I mean, what we have seen happen in other states, and similar with the RAP bill that would possibly affect Catholic hospitals. Catholic adoption agencies that did not want to adopt because of religious objections to same-sex couples would be opened up to lawsuits.
But aren't they now? I mean, there are same-sex couples who get married in other states, who are with each other for years and years, who adopt, and aren't they open to those same lawsuits now?
Well, by codifying marriage equality, it opens up, from my understanding, and I'm not an attorney, which I wear as a badge of honor, it would open up Catholic adoption agencies and other religious organizations to lawsuits. The other issue in this bill, Liz, and I know it may be digging in a little too deep, but as I understand it, the governor addressed I believe it's the education and finance law components. Many of these religious organizations and not-for-profits are incorporated under the not-for-profit laws, and that's not even addressed in the governor's bill. So I think there are some very easy lifts that the governor, if he's serious about it, can do to pay real attention to religious protections, and there are some tougher ones. You know, individuals with religious objections, that's going to be a very tough issue to broach, but we at least need to speak about these tough issues.
So clearly you're going to be speaking about it tomorrow. The majority leader said that you're going to be conferencing this issue again tomorrow. I just want to, we're out of time, unfortunately. I just want to ask you, Right now, you remain a no, is that correct? Or an undecided?
This bill that the governor just pushed down, I would vote no on. I'm not going to vote for a bill that's going to shut down services or be an affront to religious organizations, and I hope the governor will join me in that conversation.
And do you believe at this moment that your conference leader will let this bill out onto the floor?
I'm going to tell you, I cannot speak for the majority leader. I just can't. I know that the Conservative Party has asked that it come out. Mike Long, the same chairman who says he's against it, he wants it to come out for an up or down vote, but I can't speak for my majority leader.
Okay. Senator Ball, I want to thank you very much. I know it's really busy down at the Capitol. I was there myself. It's crazy down there.